Trump declining to rule out a recession as the economy starts to take a hit from his chaotic trade policy.
There is a period of transition because what we're doing is very big. It takes a little time.
The president offering no clarity after a dizzying week of on-again then off-again tariffs.
The tariffs could go up as time goes by, and they may go up, and, I don't know if it's predictability.
Trump announcing 25% tariffs on Mexico and Canada, wiping out the stock market gains since Election Day. Days later, pausing tariffs until April 2nd, then 24 hours later, threatening another round of tariffs on Canadian lumber and dairy. Trump saying he paused tariffs to help Mexico and Canada. But his top economic advisor telling ABC's Jonathan Karl that the tariffs are about stopping fentanyl from coming into the U.S.
As we've watched them make progress on the drug war, then we've relaxed some of the tariffs that we've put on them.
Yet less than 1% of fentanyl that enters the U.S. comes from Canada, while Mexico says seizures have declined 50% between October and January. ABC's Matt Rivers tracking the reaction in Mexico.
Thousands of people here in the heart of Mexico City to hear from Mexico's president in what was supposed to be a rally against U.S. tariffs that's turned into a victory lap of sorts for her after those tariffs were postponed.
Democrats slamming Trump's trade policy.
They're destroying the economy, and they're making it harder and harder for Americans to afford things.
But Sean Fain, the president of the United Auto Workers Union, praising Trump's tariffs for bringing jobs in manufacturing back to the U.S.
Tariffs are an attempt to stop the bleeding from the hemorrhaging of jobs in America for the last 33 years.
Trump officials admit his policies could impact prices.
Yes, some products that are made foreign might be more expensive, but American products will get cheaper, and that's the point.
And Lindsay, some conflicting messages from the White House tonight. President Trump says those tariffs on Canadian lumber and dairy imports could go into effect tomorrow, but his Commerce Secretary says those are planned for April 2nd. The president is also planning to impose 25% tariffs on all steel and aluminum imports on Wednesday. Lindsay?
Lots of uncertainty about those tariffs. Selena, thank you. Now to Canadians heading to the polls today to elect a new leader. President Trump is casting a large shadow over this contest after imposing tariffs and threatening to make Canada the 51st state. Let's bring in ABC's Phil Lipoff. And Phil, what can you tell us about the results?
Well, so far, Lindsay, we know that tonight Canada's Liberal Party will elect a new leader to take on that challenge you were talking about of how to handle President Trump and his threats against Canada's economy and really its sovereignty. The top candidates to replace Prime Minister Justin Trudeau are former central bank governor Mark Carney and former Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland. Both are critical of Trump, his trade policy, and the threats really to make Canada, as you mentioned, the 51st state have reverberated across that country. The winner will face voters again in a national election, Lindsay, in the coming months.
Phil, thank you. Next tonight, chaos at a CarMax dealership in Inglewood, California. Police say 8 people were injured when a driver rammed a vehicle into the showroom, sending terrified customers and workers running for cover. A driver was later arrested by police. ABC's Zareen Shah has the new details coming in tonight.
Tonight, authorities are investigating after a driver allegedly turned a car into a weapon, injuring multiple people. Dramatic video showing a driver plowing a car through this used car dealership in Inglewood, California on Saturday afternoon. At least 8 customers and employees injured, 2 of them critically, according to the LA County Fire Department. The company saying the still unidentified suspect later placed under arrest.
Broke the frame, glass went everywhere. Everybody started freaking out.
According to CarMax, the driver was having a car appraised at the time. But it's unclear what set the customer off before getting back into the car, witnesses say, and reversing through the front door before speeding out the other side. CarMax saying safety is a top priority and their hearts go out to everyone involved. And this investigation is still ongoing. Meanwhile, CarMax says they are currently implementing their own plan of action. Lindsay.
Zoreen, thank you. Now to a seminal moment in the civil rights movement, the 60th anniversary of what is now known as Bloody Sunday. Marchers linking arms and crossing the Edmund Pettus Bridge. 60 years ago, peaceful protesters were brutally beaten by state troopers and local police. Why some say there's still unfinished business in Selma, Alabama. More now from ABC's Alex Perche.
Today, crowds gathered in Selma, Alabama to mark the 60th anniversary of a key turning point in the civil rights movement. Reverend Al Sharpton saying the fight for equality continues.
Today, they are threatening the same rights that they went across that bridge to deal with 60 years ago.
Demonstrators marching between there and Montgomery in 1965 in an effort to loosen Jim Crow's hold on the South. As they crossed the Edmund Pettus Bridge, the 600 peaceful protesters were met by state troopers on horseback, armed with batons, tear gas, and hate. The chaos captured on camera, images spreading around the world. The moral outrage led to President Lyndon Johnson's signing of the Voting Rights Act of 1965, just 5 months after what became known as Bloody Sunday. One of the march organizers was a boy from Troy, John Lewis, who would go on to serve more than 3 decades in Congress. In 2015, sharing a stage with Presidents Barack Obama and George W. Bush during the 50th anniversary ceremony. Lewis died in 2020. Tonight, his spirit and that of other civil rights icons marches on.
And when you see injustice, always be prepared to show up, to stand up, and to speak up for what is right.
Lindsay, since 2020, there have been several unsuccessful attempts to pass legislation named after Congressman John Lewis that would strengthen the Voting Rights Act. Most recently, a bill was introduced this week. Lindsay?
Alex, thank you. There's still much more ahead on World News Tonight this Sunday. Good to the last shot, the buzzer beaters that could shake up the college basketball rankings. And they were stuck for hours. A busy highway was completely shut down because of late season snow. Next tonight, a fierce winter storm left drivers stranded for hours in Arizona this weekend. Traffic was backed up for 15 miles on Interstate 40 with multiple accidents. 20 inches of snow fell in Flagstaff, more than 2 feet in Williams. Meanwhile, in the eastern half of the country this week, an early taste of spring. Highs will be in the 60s, 70s, even 80s in some places. And when we come back, down to the wire, some thrilling overtime wins to get you ready for March Madness. To the index, and look at this, a pair of buzzer beaters, number 7.